Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Dennis Brown. I want to thank you for joining me for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I do these every Monday, and today I've got a guest expert with me, and we're going to talk all about freight broker sales CRMs. So we're going to dive into 5 reasons why freight brokers need to use a CRM to maximize their sales outreach, their sales efforts, and all the time and energy that they put into selling and getting customers. So that's the topic today. We're going to talk all about CRMs. I've had some conversations about this before. I've done some content about this before, but today I have an expert, someone who actually founded and built an entire sales CRM specifically for freight brokers and freight agents. Okay. So if you're joining me live here, well, first, if you're joining me on replay, hit me up in the comments with #replay. I'd love to hear from my replay folks. I know not everybody can make this live, but if you are live, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. We'll do some shout outs. And then the agenda is we're going to do some shout outs. Then I'm going to introduce my guests. We're going to talk all about sales CRMs. And then if you stick around to the end, we're going to do live Q&A. Okay, so you'll be able to ask him questions, ask me questions, whatever you have, whether it be about sales or CRM or startup or whatever it is that, whatever itch you have to scratch, we'll be happy to help. So we've got a bunch of people joining us now. We've got people, let's see, what do we got? We got Fernando from PA. We got Anreese 9143 from Dayton, Ohio. We got Connor from Armenia. As always, we got JG Work from Atlanta. Facebook user who didn't disclose their name from Charlotte, Mustafa from Tracy, California, Courtney from Augusta, Georgia, Leonard, welcome Leonard, Garo from Pasadena, California, Torrance from Los Angeles, California, TBD from Memphis, Steve JA27 from Pittsburgh. We got Tanya at the Freight Girl from Chicago, Illinois. Love it. Tamara from Virginia, Corey from Billings, Montana, Michael from Peachtree City, Georgia, Michael 46 from Orlando, Joe from Dumont, New Jersey, Kevin Perry from Raleigh, North Carolina, my friend Jared Ross joining me from Nebraska. Welcome, Jared. Mohammed from New York, Nicole from Dallas, Texas, Tom from Phoenix, Arizona, Ismail from New York, Johnny Lemons from Denver, Colorado. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I do these Freight Broker Bootcamp live trainings every week. Sometimes it's me solo talking about a topic. Sometimes I have past students that are kind of talking about their journey and their success story. And today I have a little bit different angle. We are going to be talking to a gentleman who actually created, developed, and launched a freight broker sales CRM specific to freight brokers, okay? Which is a little bit different. We're going to dive into that. So without further ado, let me bring up my guest here. Everybody, welcome Josh Lyles. He is the founder of Sales-CRM. Welcome, Josh.
Dennis, how's it going? Grateful to be here.
Awesome, buddy. Thank you for joining me. We've been talking about this for a little bit now. Give everybody a quick intro. I've given him the brief elevator version. Yeah. He's the founder of Sales-CRM, but talk to us a little bit about, give us a quick intro, a little bit about your journey. I know you've been in sales for a long time in the freight brokerage business. So talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I saw somebody in the comments from Augusta, Georgia. I went to Augusta State University. That was the first college that I went to. I graduated from Georgia State. So shout out to Augusta because don't hear too many people from there. But hey, everybody, my name is Josh Lyles. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. My background is all in sales and sales management, sales leadership from New Balance, Tesla, and then at 2 different freight brokerages, One Point Logistics and Silo, both based in Nashville. And it's very interesting and quite a transition to go and just build a CRM because there's the big behemoths out there like Salesforce and HubSpot and Pipedrive and whatnot. But what I've always found is that when I first got into CRM, I was very overwhelmed, and there were so many different things in the CRMs that when you first jump into it and you're used to the pen and paper, you're used to the spreadsheets, it's absolutely overwhelming. But once you really get to figure out how you can cook in your sales process and get it to work for you, and try not to make it more of a compliance tool, it can be very effective. And especially in a world like freight brokerage where you're typically doing a ton of outreach to shippers because it's a really competitive world, it's really important to make sure that it fits really well within your prospecting and your activity. And so We just built a much more slimmed down, simplified version that talks the language that freight brokers talk in the logistics space. And we're just actively working to build and develop the product a little bit more. We try to be very hands-on and support and talking to those that actually sign up for it to try to fit their needs and to also make sure it's customized to their needs. So we've been building it now for quite some time, but we actually just made the pivot this year, going away from kind of all kinds of small to medium-sized businesses strictly to freight brokerages and 3PL. So that was a pivot that we made earlier this year. Super glad that we did it. Dennis, I know you talk about niching down all the time in the freight world. I've talked to you on about this on the side. It's one of the best pieces of advice I think you can give, just to kind of start narrower, go more vertical. And so that's what we've done, and it's really helped us out. And we plan on staying in the logistics and transportation space.
Yeah. So the reason why I decided to have Josh on was this: there are a gazillion CRMs out there. We all know that, right? There's big ones, there's small ones, there's niche ones, there's more kind of all-encompassing ones. But the thing that interested me the most was the customization specific to the freight brokerage industry. You guys know that's where I live every day: freight broker, freight agents, teaching, helping people to do that and grow their business. And a CRM, I always recommend CRMs as a part of that process. It's just, without a sales CRM, it's going to become very overwhelming, the level of sales activity that you're going to have as a startup in order to just develop a real business. So I'm a big believer in that. So today, Josh decided to come on. We were going to have a conversation about 5 reasons. We could probably list 100. Okay.
Yeah.
But he came up with kind of the top 5 reasons why freight brokers need a CRM in 2023 and beyond. Okay. So that's what we're going to pull apart. On the back end, we are going to do live Q&A. So hold your questions to the end. We'd love to answer those questions. So Josh, why don't you dive in and just kind of start with number 1? We'll pull it apart and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So number one of the biggest reasons that a CRM is always needed is it's a source of record for you, as a freight broker and as a salesperson. And as a source of record, what we're talking about is your contacts and your notes. So many times, again, when people sort of start off in sales or they start off in brokerage, what they're going to do is they're going to keep a list of people, whether it's printing out a sheet of paper with a list of contacts or writing down those contacts on pen and paper, or even just putting them into a spreadsheet. And oftentimes, once you get past, I would say, the 20 plus contacts number, it becomes a lot harder to manage in terms of who you've reached out to, when you've reached out to them, what you spoke with them about, and then when you also want to reach out to them next. And then what a CRM really does is it just makes it easier. And one of the simplest things is just the accessibility to say, okay, I want to go search and find this shipper, or I want to go search and find this contact. And then really quickly, the notes pull up. You have, whatever other customized fields that you may have in the CRM are going to show. I think another thing in freight, especially with freight brokerages, especially as you start to work with the team, we'll get into some of the team stuff later. But it just, like, one is kind of a paper trail, and I would say almost an extension of your brain, because when you're starting to make that many activities, let's say I always recommend keeping about like 100 to 150 accounts in your name, 150 shippers. But when you start to have that many conversations within a given week, it gets really hard to remember all the small details. And oftentimes it's the small details that really make the difference for you to actually work to earn your first shipment opportunity. So I think it's just a really simple way to have, again, quick accessibility. What did you talk with them about? Because I'm the primary user for the CRM in itself. And I live and die by this thing. I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to build one, because it really helped my sales career, really starting when I was at Tesla. But there's plenty of times where I have conversations with people, and after you have so many in a given day, in a week, like sometimes I can't even remember what I ate yesterday. It's extremely valuable having those notes, because if you don't, a lot of times that becomes almost wasted effort and opportunity if you don't recall exactly what you spoke with them about. And then it's also a poor customer experience, because then you're having to ask them the same questions. And that's when the shipping manager, the transportation manager can get a little frustrated, because you've already covered that information in that detail.
Yeah, it really, what it comes down to, and you hit the nail on the head, right? It is a repository for all of your sales data, right? So every email you send, every conversation you have, every quote that you do, everything that you do in the sales arena, from sourcing a lead to the initial cold outreach, through discovery, through qualifications, through all of the different stages of selling, right? Quoting and pricing, all of that. It stores all of that data. You don't have to remember anything. Okay.
Correct.
And we know in this day and age, it's hard to remember anything because we're getting crushed with messages all over. Now, if you're a salesperson, you have all of this data floating around in your head, and it's extremely hard to remember. And so when you log into a CRM, whatever CRM it is, Sales Dash or otherwise, you can pull up all of your previous conversations, everything you've talked about, every single note that you've ever done for years, sometimes, right?
Correct.
Imagine the value of having that data. I talk about sales intelligence all the time, right? Any piece of data that enhances your opportunity to get the sale. Now, there's sales intelligence on LinkedIn, there's sales intelligence on Google, there's sales intelligence on a customer's website or a prospect's website. But the sales intelligence that is the most valuable, right, is the sales intelligence that you gather and put into your CRM and that you can leverage for years and years to come. So yeah, just as a fundamental reason why you have to have a CRM is you have to track that data. You have to manage that data. So that is absolute. If all the CRM did was that, okay, if that's all it did, it would be worth its weight in gold.
Correct.
Okay.
Agreed.
But let's talk about number 2.
Yeah. So number 2 is going to be sales engagement and follow-ups. This ties directly into it, but from a sales engagement standpoint, with Sales Dash in particular, 2 of the biggest things that we want the CRM to be as a source of record, to know exactly what's happened with the shipper or contact, and what you've done in the past and conversations with them. And then from a sales engagement standpoint, that's actually engaging with the shipping contact. So that's going to be your calls, your emails, texts. It could be social DMs as well. But it's going to be able to do that directly out of the platform. So for example, with Sales Dash, we integrate with Google and Outlook. It makes it very simple to send single sends and emails directly actually out of the CRM. So you don't have to go to your email inbox. You can build email templates. It's probably one of the most used features in our system, where you can build out personalized email templates. So if I have Dennis Brown as a contact in my CRM, it'll pull Dennis's first name and put that into the email template. I don't even have to type those things out. It could even have his company name of Freight Broker Bootcamp, and then have that in the email template as well. So I can email faster. Also really good to spread with the team if you have multiple team members that are building out multiple email templates. And then, we also have certain integrations like a Ring Central integration. So for those that use Ring Central as a voice over IP application, you can just actually do click to dial directly out of the system. If you don't have Ring Central, the system for Sales Dash automatically detects phone numbers. So you can just click to dial and it'll route through your computer and however you have that set up, even if you use another phone system. And from that, when it comes to engaging with your customers, the follow-ups are oftentimes, it's the gold. The gold's always in the follow-ups, and that's where a lot of sales are missed. And there's some really cool statistics that are out there. Like I always kind of lean back on one of Zoom Info has just a ton of sales stats that are out there. And I think a couple of the ones that they have, or at least like one of the main ones that always stuck out to me, was about 55% of people give up after 1 or 2 interactions with the customer and they don't follow up. But especially for those that have been in freight brokerage, it's super competitive. So I've overseen 2 different sales teams, and I've cold called, I've ran a pipeline myself, I've closed shippers, but so many times when you're talking to these shipper contacts, they'll tell you that they get these calls and they get these emails all the time, right? It's very competitive. And so to actually be able to get them to remember, because you're not even getting FaceTime with them, right? It's typically your voice, it's your name, it's your company's name, and you want to get them some information, your website, brochure, whatever it may be. It sometimes is really hard because you can have a 30-minute, 45-minute conversation with them, and then 2 weeks later, they may not even remember you. That's something that I would say is not uncommon. So the follow-ups and basically trying to build that almost like your personal brand awareness and your company brand awareness with the shipping contacts that you're talking to is really important. And so I think last thing just to touch on, at least with Sales Dash, is we have a really unique task manager in our system that helps keep salespeople very active. So it's going to keep it in front of you with your tasks for everything that you have for the current day. It's going to keep you on top of your overdue tasks. So that way you can prevent from getting unorganized or if stuff popped up within a certain day. And then also suggest tasks to you for any lead that you have in the system that is not marked as a client or not marked as disqualified, but you forgot to set a follow-up, because that is also not uncommon, is to forget to set a follow-up. So the system will also keep those in front of you. So sales engaging, follow-ups, crucial when it comes to this game.
Yeah. So just imagine this. You log into the CRM. For those of you that aren't familiar with the CRM, or maybe have never used a CRM, imagine you've done last week, you did 100 phone calls a day, hypothetically, just for a number. You talked during that week, you had dozens of conversations, some of them good, some of those bad, somewhere in the middle. And the fact is, you have to follow up with some of those people. Are you going to remember everything that happened? And then most importantly, exactly when you need to follow up or what the next step was. Some of them you're going to need to send emails to. Some of them you're going to need to, provide pricing to. Some of them you're going to have to do a scheduled follow-up call. You're never going to remember these things. I promise you, I've been in sales for 30 years. Okay. You're not going to remember this stuff. Okay. And, it's great to start out on a scratch pad and just kind of jot things down. But trust me when I tell you, it's going to fall through the cracks. And, you've heard it before. The fortune's in the follow-up. The people that follow up the most effectively are typically the people that have the most success. And that's what a CRM does, plus a lot of the other things that Josh said. But I mean, that scheduling and that tracking, imagine logging in and you see, oh, I got to call these 6 people today. I got to send this email today. I've got to, I got to do this research today. I got to do whatever it is, whatever those tasks are from last week or from yesterday or from last month, they tee it right up for you. I mean, They put it right in your face. You can't miss it. If you screw it up at that point, then that's a you problem. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, perfect. All right. That's number 2. Let's talk about number 3.
Yeah. Number 3 is, I'd say one of my favorites, but it's profiling and qualifying shippers. So I think where a lot of CRMs implementations go wrong. So there's always going to be the pain point that somebody has, and they say, okay, I'm forgetting these follow-ups, or I don't have an easy way to keep track of my notes and all my contacts. They'll go to look at CRMs, but the reason why I would say when some people go to look, and there's a lot of people that go to try CRMs and they just either really dislike them, they're too complex, they're super clunky. But when it comes to actually implementing one and getting one set up for your company or for yourself, number one, the best CRM that's out there that you can use is always going to be the one that you actually use. And whatever system that may be, that's the one that you need to go with. But in implementation for what you're doing, you want to make it as customized as possible to I would say your ideal shipper profile and the language that you speak every single day. And if it doesn't speak that, that's the reason why a lot of people struggle with generic CRMs, is because you're having to use different words that you typically don't use. And, whether it's like lead or prospect or qualified, sometimes you may not use some of those things, but freight also has a really unique lingo that we use when it comes to those things. So, in profiling shippers, capturing things like industry, annual revenue, the employee size for a shipper, different equipment types, modes, those kinds of different things are really good to say, okay, these are the ideal kinds of shippers that we want to go after and try to find more of. And sometimes you can start with operations and then bring that back and say, okay, from a sales aspect, let's go find more of those kinds of shippers. And then in qualifying, you're trying to figure out what the actual scope of the opportunity is, right? So is it a spot or a contract opportunity? Is it a project-based opportunity that's only going to last, a finite time period? The different locations and facilities, you may start with one location, and that may be, something that you're actually qualifying and trying to understand what the scope of the opportunity is there. But there could be a larger or potentially another facility that you may be able to get an internal referral from your
It might be seasonal,
customer.
Might be seasonality. That's another one, big one in freight.
Could be season out. Exactly. And understanding what those times are, you can document that, and you can even have it to where the CRM's kind of letting you know exactly which seasonal opportunities are coming up within the next 30 days or the next 60, 90 days. Obviously you want to know what the volume potential is, whether that's average, weekly, monthly. So when it comes to profiling and qualifying, I think the best way that you can always do this, and how I always position this to people, is think about the questions when you're prospecting or connecting with a shipper and trying to learn more about their business. Whatever those questions that you're always asking every single conversation, that's what you want to cook into your system, because you want it to be a guidance for you in your sales process. And so that way it's always in front of you. And if you have any blanks and you have, a field that's empty, that may be that you haven't actually understood or learned that from that shipper quite yet. And it's very easy to build in. And then also when it comes to working with team members, that also really helps as well. So you can kind of keep track in terms of what you do or do not know about a specific shipper.
Yeah. So again, you're gathering data to help profile and qualify the shipping opportunities, the customer opportunities, the prospect opportunities that you have. The cool thing about Sales Dash and CRM similar to this is the fact that you can customize the data points rather than trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, right? You have a generic CRM that's just saying, hey, what industry it is, right? You could get a lot more granular, a lot more specific And you can customize it to those qualifying questions that you're used to asking, right?
Yeah.
Whether that be locations or type of freight that they're shipping, or whether it's LTL or truckload or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of levels of customization. And again, that's one of the big reasons why I had Josh on here, because number one, that's not easy to build. Okay. And number two, because it's very niche, I feel as though that this type of a CRM could serve and support the community better, right? Serve and support the students and the people that are part of my community much better. So again, at the end, we're going to give you a link where you guys can check it out and sign up for a free trial and get a demo and do all that stuff. Hold tight. We're going to hit what are we hitting? Number 4?
We're going for number 4.
All right, cool.
I keep bringing up team, and it is team collaboration. So one of the most common things when I talk to brokerages, or even if it's small teams, it could be 2, 3, 4 people. But one of the most common questions, whether you're out on the sales floor in a remote environment and Slacking and Microsoft Teamsing, is going to be what's going on with this shipper, or what's going on with this lead or prospect. And so going back to the first point, when it comes to your notes being stored, is you're going to be able to obviously see exactly what's happened or what has not happened, right? So it helps from a visibility standpoint. It helps from an accountability standpoint to collaborate with your team. If you're a manager or an owner of a brokerage or an agency, you can also set permissions in terms of what the capabilities are for a specific user internally in the system. You can, lead distribution and lead generation is very important. So how many accounts that you have in your name, and being able to, if you have other team members in the system, make sure that they have an adequate enough number of shippers that they can actually be contacting and prospecting. And then one of my favorite things, because this is where when I first jumped into a CRM at Tesla, and then even getting into freight brokerage, coming into that industry, into a totally new industry, is I've always used the CRM to just learn what's going on. And I always start with the best salespeople that are in the system. And the reason why I do that is because I can jump in and I can see a number of different things, but the main things are going to be their notes. So I can see exactly what kind of information they're talking about in their conversations. And if there's something that I may not be asking in my sales process, or a question, specific pieces of information that are not in my sales process, I can now say, okay, that may be something I need to ask if that's information that the shipper shared that was important to them. If it's important to them, it's good chance it's important to another shipper. I can review their cadences for follow-ups. When it comes to sales cadences, in terms of when do I call, when do I email, when do I follow up, and how should that be in a shorter time period? Should I do it tomorrow? Should I do it in 2 or 3 days? Should I do it in 2 weeks from now? I think it's good to be able to review that and kind of see what has worked in the past for you. And you really just do that by starting with the current customers that you have already in the system that you closed from start to finish. Because oftentimes it does take a number of different contact points to actually get to the point where you onboard a shipper. So is the calendar like Community, or is it, because I think there's a calendar feature built into it, isn't it? So is that something that crosses over, or where you can check other people's calendars, or is that more solo? Is that more siloed? You can, but honestly, the calendar is really more so, it's a little bit, I'd say it's impactful for 2 reasons. If you get scheduled time on the calendar with one of your prospects, number one, you're going to be able to see exactly when that is. But I would say the best view of our calendar is actually the monthly view, for you to see how many tasks you have on a specific day, because salespeople often will load one specific day up with a bunch of tasks, and then they won't get to all of them. So if you've got 60 tasks on a given day, but 15 on another, it's just a good way to sort of see that spread and say, okay, I've got 60 on Wednesday, so I need to actually just get more of these to push out to Thursday or Friday, because realistically, that's when I'm truly going to be able to get to these. And Wednesday's going to be it's already a crowded day at this point.
So did you say it just as a separate, this kind of came to mind. Did you say that it integrates with some of the messaging platforms like a Slack or a Team or things like that? Or did it have its own? I was trying to remember.
Yeah. So we integrate with Google and Outlook for your email and calendar. So it'll, for example, if you create an event in Sales Dash where, okay, let's just say I've got a meeting with Dennis from 12 to 12:30, that's going to push it to my Google or my Outlook calendar automatically for whatever that task is. And then if I have Dennis in my CRM with Dennis's email, and Google or Outlook recognizes that that's the email that I used in an event for, then it'll also push that in a two-way sync to Sales Dash as well to create a task. I think the one thing in freight realistically is that most of the time you're getting a bunch of no pickups and a bunch of left voicemails. And so most of the time you're not getting time on the calendar. Obviously, if you can, that's great. But that's kind of how the calendar integration works. And then when it comes to the Microsoft Teams, the Slacks, we do an integration with Zapier, which is a workflow automation tool. And so it's all sort of set through triggers and actions to say, if a specific thing happens in Sales Dash, you could push a message to come up in Slack, right?
Yeah,
Or you
that
could
makes
push them.
sense.
So that's kind of the way that works.
Yeah, that makes sense. Rather than creating your own messaging platform, which makes probably no sense at all, integrate
It'd
with
be
like a Slack, right?
correct. Yep.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, cool.
One beast at a time.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? All right, number 5. Let's talk about number 5 real quick.
Yeah, number 5 is reporting. So with reporting, you can get really creative and crafty with this. But number one, when you sign up for Sales Dash, we already have reporting at 2 different levels for salespeople and for sales managers. So for salespeople, the first thing that's the most important that takes up a third of your screen in our system is going to be your task manager. Who are you contacting today? And you just have a whole list of 10 different tasks that you have, contact shippers that you can be reaching out to. But beyond that, we have a bunch of different reports that are in the system that are going to show you specific things for your active shipper leads. Those are already customized as well to kind of show you any of the information that you've captured in profiling the shipper. Same things that we sort of mentioned earlier of, equipment types, modes, volume, that kind of stuff. There's other reports, like one of them, I would say one of the most impactful or more popular ones that we have in the system is to actually keep a specific cadence over time. So this is the report in itself is all the shippers that you haven't contacted within the last 14 days. So if you want to keep a 2-week cadence and make sure that you always reached out to them, it'll automatically populate shippers that you have not contacted in the past 2 weeks. You could also bump that time period back if you wanted to 30 days or even 60 days, just kind of depending on your preferred workflow there. But that's a report, for example, that lives on your dashboard. So from almost, just a bird's eye view and a macro level view, it's a really good overview of your sales engine, essentially, to say, okay, these are the behaviors that I want to make sure that I'm doing to stay in front of the shippers that I'm prospecting and I'm talking to prevent a missed follow-up or to just make sure I'm staying in front of them. So there's other things when it comes to pipeline management, if you all are familiar with the practice of that. But the easiest way that I would break that down is, let's just say, again, you have 100 to 150 shipper accounts that are in your name. And oftentimes you're going to have 5, maybe 10 that you've had more qualified conversations with, that you're more excited that you can say, hey, I think I may close them before the end of this month or within a month, right? Because you've had that kind of conversation with them. So it would be saying, instead of that 100 to 150 and looking at them, it'd be to create a deal into your pipeline, running them through an extensive sales process to say, okay, these are the ones that I feel best about and I need to keep under a microscope and separate from the bulk of my list. So beyond that, when it comes to reporting, our system has a bunch of custom reporting that you can do. You can get as crafty and creative as you want as you customize the system. But one of the most impactful things is it allows you to segment and target your shippers. So if you're somebody that specializes in a specific industry, such as food and beverage or construction equipment, one of those, you can easily be able to pull a list and say, okay, I want to find all my shippers that are active, not disqualified in the system, that are in that industry, or maybe of a specific revenue size or employee size. Because over time, as you start to get into the groove a little bit more, you start to identify certain trends and patterns of the kinds of shippers that you've closed, or let's just say like your top customer, right? If you can try to find some similar characteristics of them based on their size or industry, it just allows you to say, okay, let me go find a list so that way I can maybe use them as, almost my sales pitch to my new prospects. So
it basically has some pre-formatted, standardized reporting that anybody could use, right? And that allows them to kind of get a different level of insight into the data that they've entered into their CRM, or they can customize their own reports.
Correct.
So you can do your own custom reports specific to exactly what you're looking for. Now imagine this. Imagine you've been a freight broker and you've been selling for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. Imagine how many people you've entered into how many customers or prospects you've entered into your CRM. Imagine how many contacts you've actually entered into your CRM. Imagine all the conversations, imagine all the quotes, imagine all the different geography they're in, the different industries they've touched. And now imagine you're 3 or 4 years into the future and you want to really kind of narrow down into this specific niche or this specific group or this specific segment. You can go into that report and you can create your own custom report. You don't have to call Josh. You don't have to be a techno wizard. You just kind of follow the basic setup and bing, bang, boom. You get an entire list of the 73 shippers that you are most interested in talking to today. right?
And the beautiful part about that too is you build that report once and it can just live automatically in your system.
Right.
So you can have 73 one day, but after the end of the week, you're either going to have less or more that are in that system as you're kind of moving them through and qualifying them, right? So it's great because it takes a minute to get those built to your specific needs, and then it just lives there and it's just kind of automatically running for you.
Love it. Perfect. Hey, listen, I've got good news for you guys. If you guys want a free trial, if you want to check it out and get a free trial and get under the hood and kick the tires and check it out, you can sign up here at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/CRM. All right. I signed up. I've been inside the program. I've looked at it. I've kicked the tires. I wouldn't have brought Josh on here if I didn't think it was a good fit for my community. Again, you guys can check that out. Get a free trial. I strongly suggest you get a free trial. If you're not interested at the end of the free trial, no harm, no foul, right? That's why he does the free trial. But
Right.
you may find that this is exactly what you need at the stage you are in your business. And I'm going to tell you, as a brand new freight broker, someone who just launched their business, you might be able to get away with a notepad and a pen and maybe an Excel spreadsheet of some sort or a Google sheet of some sort. It'll work for a little while. Okay. It'll work for a little while. You'll hobble along. But if you really want to ramp up your sales effort and you really want to maximize your conversion, you absolutely need some sort of system to track and keep, not only track what you're doing, but to keep you on track. Okay. Because sales is not easy. There's a lot of moving parts. And so having a system like this, whether it be Sales Dash or some other system, okay, you absolutely need a CRM. I've been preaching this for years. They're very inexpensive. I was talking to Josh when I bought my first CRM back in like 1998. Okay. We won't mention the name because it's archaic. I think it was 97 or 98. I think it cost me like 5 or 10 grand up front. And then it cost me a couple $1,000 a year after that, right? I had to shell all that money out up front, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a sales CRM these days, you can get started for 20, 30, 40, $50, right? Per month. And there's no long-term contracts. So get a free trial, check it out. I'd love to hear your feedback on the back end, whether that be in the comments or in a future live. But listen, Josh, I really appreciate you being here. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, maybe on social. I know you're pretty busy on TikTok. I know you're pretty busy on LinkedIn. Yep. Let everybody know how they can connect with you, and then we'll wrap it up for today.
Yeah, best way to connect is I would just connect on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a connection request on here, Josh Lyles, and feel free to reach out over DM if you have any specific questions. One of the things with our CRM is I would say that we hear compared to the generic ones is, again, we have it templated out so that way when you sign up and you guys can go to the link that you see right now to get your free trial. But the overall goal is to make it to where it's customized, and you guys are basically at a much better foundation from day one once you sign up. We have some video tutorials that are in the system. The longest video tutorial I think that I have is 6 minutes, and the majority of them are 2 to 3 minutes long. But reaching out on LinkedIn is great. Again, Josh Lyles, feel free to DM. I'm more than happy to answer questions. If you do sign up for a free trial, there's a very good chance that you're going to hear from me, because I do like to proactively reach out and understand what the specific needs are. And it's also something that I would say it does take time to sort of get set up and to get yourself in a good spot, whether it's importing your leads from a spreadsheet or, manually getting your contacts added, however you may do it. But feel free to follow my content here on LinkedIn. And I typically like to post a lot of free educational things just from my experience from being in brokerage and just being in sales. I'm a sales marketing nerd. I love this stuff. I'm learning from Dennis now, so I'm glad that him and I have connected. But that would be the best way. And again, our website is sales-crm.com too. If you just wanted to check out and learn more about the features, pricing, and any other information.
Perfect. Love it, Josh. Appreciate you being here, buddy. For the rest of you, if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're struggling, you're getting some information on TikTok, you're getting some information on YouTube, you're getting some information on Google, but it's not all coming together, right? There's no gel in between. There's nothing that binds it all. And you're looking for a system on how to go from no experience to developing and becoming a freight broker, freight agent in 30 days or less. Check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. I've trained over 10,000 students, been in business, had this program for over a decade, right? Been doing brokerage, did over $200 million as a broker. And we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Appreciate you being here, Josh. For those of you that want to be a part of the Q&A, hold tight. right? Hold tight. I'm going to grab a quick drink. I'm sure Josh is going to catch his breath because he just did a 20, 30-minute sprint talking everything about CRM. So hold your questions for now. Give me a minute, and then we are going to dive into Q&A. Now, you can ask questions about CRM, about sales, about Freight Broker Startup, anything about Josh, whatever, as long as it's business related, obviously. And so what I'm going to want you to do is in the comments, you can type both or specific to me, Dennis, or specific to Josh, whoever you want to answer the question. Okay. So feel free, dive in, hit some questions, hit us up with some questions in the chat box, wherever you're at, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're at. Here's one thing for sure. We are not going to get to everybody's question. I wish we could. There's just not enough time in a day. We'll get to as many as we can, and then Josh or I, or maybe both of us, will be able to jump back in here later in the week and maybe comment and do some follow-up comments to try to point you guys in the right direction or give you a resource that'll answer that question for you. But hit me up with any questions you guys have, and we will do our best to get to them today. All right, so this is obviously for Josh. Fire, Josh. How is your CRM different from Zoho?
Love it. Yeah, Zoho's a solid CRM. I was talking to Dennis right before we went live, and Zoho is probably in the top 4 for the brokerages that I hear for CRMs that do get used. But Zoho is they kind of have a full suite of products. They pretty much have anything and everything that you sort of need in a CRM. Ours is a lot more simplified. It is going to be more affordable than a Zoho, and again, it's going to be templated out for freight brokers. To again, like when you first sign up, you're going to be able to already have a good foundation of profiling, qualifying shippers, and then just your dashboard and reporting and everything is already built for freight brokers. So you have a much faster start. And a lot of times when people do look to join the other CRMs like a Zoho, you either have to do all the implementation yourself, which can definitely take a lot of time because you got to learn all the ins and outs. And many times they have certifications and courses to learn that, which can take hours. Again, we have really quick video tutorials to help you out with this, but you're going to be able to save that. And if you do go to, like, let's just say an implementation specialist or a Zoho consultant, that's somebody that you're probably going to have to pay thousands of dollars for, whereas you're already getting a leg up. Because we often hear this with people that have used other top CRMs that are out there on the more generic side and have signed up for our system. They'll say like, yeah, we hired somebody and we paid them X amount or a lot of money to customize it. But I often also find that they still say that it's not customized as deep as what they even have when they first start off, when they jump into our system. So it's different for everybody. I'm not saying it's the same across the board, but in a simple answer, I would say simpler. There's actually less things. It's more affordable, and it's already customized for freight brokers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna add to that, and that is, I think Zoho is a great CRM. I've recommended them in the past. The biggest difference for me is that I think, particularly for freight broker startups, is that Zoho is going to be a little overwhelming. Okay, it's going to be a little overwhelming, I think, compared to like a sales dash. Secondly, sales dash is specific for freight brokers. And while you might be able to do some level of customizations in these other CRMs, it wasn't designed specifically for freight brokers. This system was. So it is going to be easier to implement. It's going to be a little bit easier to navigate. For me, logging in, I felt as though the lingo was already there, right? I jumped in and all of a sudden the lingo for freight brokerage was there. It was something that I knew. It wasn't foreign to me, right? So just try this, you tell us. I want to hear what you think is different, right? That's what I'd love to hear. That's what Josh would love to hear.
Yeah.
Get a free trial and then tell us. Again, it's zero obligation, right? You do a free trial, costs you absolutely nothing. You can cancel before the trial's over if you're not happy, and bing, bang, boom, you're done. But great question. Thank you for asking. All right. Bears are
great question, Jim.
Always somebody, Jim Hand. Starting. Okay. All right. So Ann Rice asked, Dennis, I'll be starting boot camp tonight and talked a lot about the accelerator. What is the cost of that? Okay. So Freight Broker Bootcamp, if you're interested in my startup, I have 2 different programs, right? Really. I have my startup Freight Broker Bootcamp program, which is for true startups, people that are interested in just getting started launching their brokerage or agency, right? So that you can go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. That starts at $185 one-time cost, no recurring cost. Okay. That's the startup. If you're interested in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, that's my Freight Broker Sales Coaching Program. That's where I take this piece of my brain, I transplant it into your head, everything I know about Freight Broker sales strategies, tactics, tools, my entire sales system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. We put over 600 students through that program in the last year or two. And the rating, the feedback from the students has been a 9.2 out of 10. Now, the price of that has gradually and consistently went up, and it's going to continue to go up. I will tell you that I can't guarantee what the price is going to be. We're going to be launching it in the next 30 days, right? It's closed for enrollment. It was sold out. I'll be opening up enrollment again in the next 30 days. But here's what I can tell you. If you want a chance to be a part of the next Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, you need to get on the wait list, okay? The wait list is absolutely free. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. You will be the first to be notified when enrollment opens. You can click on it. You can see all the details, everything that's involved, the pricing, the payment plans, everything that you want. And then you can decide whether you want to get enrolled. The last time I did the program, the price range, we had a couple different products. The price range anywhere from like $897 up to $1,997. There's a good chance it's going to go up, but you won't know unless you're on the wait list. Okay. It costs you nothing to be on the wait list. It sells out. I can tell you this, it sells out every single time within a week, usually 3 to 5 days it sells out. And then I got to close the cart because I only put about 100 people into this program at a time. And I only open it about every 3, 4, 5 months, depending upon what my schedule is like. So get on the wait list and maybe I'll see you on the back end. Good question. Thank you. All right, what do we got? What other questions do we got? You guys are awfully quiet today.
Let's get some sales questions.
Yeah, you guys are quiet today. That's okay. Listen, Josh has got a lot of shit to do. I got plenty of stuff to do, but this is your chance. If you got questions, ask now, guys. Okay. Let's see. Here's a question from Michael. Hello, Dennis. So I opened a brokerage, but I've never operated it or made a cent from it. I'm getting inquiries about a claim on my bond. How would you handle this confusion? Okay. So you've never moved a load. But yet you're getting a claim on your bond. Well, the first thing I would do is just contact the bonding company and have a conversation. You got to start a conversation with them. If there's a claim on your bond, they've already taken all the information from whoever the carrier is that's claiming your bond. Now, we know you didn't do it, but potentially it could have been somebody else that either made a mistake in who they're claiming, or it could potentially been some sort of fraud situation. I don't know what the situation is, but the first thing I'd be doing if I were in your shoes is I'd be on the phone with that bonding company, finding all the details of what's going on. And then I'd be letting them know exactly what you let me know, is that you never did business with them. As a matter of fact, you haven't done any business yet as a startup. So start that dialogue. I wouldn't wait. I would reach out to them by phone. Usually whenever there's some sort of a claim, they're usually very responsive, obviously, because initially they're on the hook for it, right? That's part of what a freight broker bond is. So potentially if that bond is legitimate, and just so you guys know, they're carriers, anybody can file a claim on your bond. It doesn't mean it's going to get paid or it's going to get put through, right? So anybody that can make up a story, or even if you did use them, can file on your bond. But there's going to be two sides of the conversation, right? There's going to be the side of the conversation from whoever filed the bond, and then there's going to be your side. And then the bonding company is going to be the one that's going to determine whether they pay out that claim on the bond, okay? So don't get too worried, but I definitely would want to start that dialogue, okay? All right, good question. Okay, question, Mohammed. Can I manage my truck brokerage agency offshore after I've already registered my business in the States? So you can be a freight broker anywhere in the world as long as you're operating legally within the FMCSA guidelines, meaning you have a broker authority. You've got the things that you need here that are required by the FMCSA, like your broker bond and your BOC3 and all the things that are required to have your freight broker authority. So if you have your freight broker authority, you can be located in Canada, Mexico, Armenia, Greece, where I just got back from. Your location doesn't matter, but you do need to operate within the confines of the FMCSA. So yeah, I hope that helps. Here's a question for you, Josh. Every broker's favorite sales question. What is your typical cold call opening script?
Oh boy. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people that tests out a bunch of different things, but most of the time for me, like my opening script is going to be to, it's really just to make sure I'm talking to the right person. So whatever I'm reaching out about, if I was in brokerage or if I was a broker, I'd be trying to understand if I'm speaking to the person that handles shipping. And I think what sometimes is almost even more important than your script is sometimes your tone and your cadence when you are talking to somebody on the phone. But I've been honestly even like listening and educating myself a lot more just on the cold calling piece. But for me, I'm actually reaching out to brokerages myself. So many times I'm asking to try to identify who the DM is, who the decision maker is, or would oversee the decision for software at the company. Many times that's going to be my script, and I'll just go into a really simple transition hey, I know that you're not looking right now, or there's a very, very good chance that you're not looking right now. But what I'm looking to the reason why I'm reaching out is because we're a freight brokerage specific CRM, and I wanted to see if there's an opportunity down the road that whenever your contract is coming up, if we could potentially be evaluated and what that process would look like. And so again, most of the time that person I'm speaking with may not be the decision maker, but I'm trying to identify that, because if it is, sometimes I always find people take the ownership in wanting to have that conversation, which I think is great. And if it's not, I don't necessarily always want to waste my time or their time because they've got other stuff going on, especially at a brokerage. And I want to get it. I want to try to get into the hands of the right person, and either get them the information or find the time that's most appropriate for me to reach back out.
Yeah. So he's really going into qualifying mode, right? He's really trying to qualify because he's trying to spend his time wisely. So he's heavily in the qualification, and then he's doing this kind of a soft sell, kind of like, hey, I know you're not interested now, but down the road, would you, would you be open to having a conversation about it? Right. So he's soft selling it. He's not hard closing it. He's not out there beating people over the head with this pitch. It's kind of a soft sell. Matter of fact, he even says you're probably not interested. Right. So that's a good way to take people's guard down, right? Because naturally, when somebody feels you're a salesperson, all of a sudden their guard goes up and they're ready to bite you, right? So he takes their guard down. So he's disarming them a little bit, which is good.
Yep.
There's a million different ways you could do this, right? And Jim, you've been a part of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. We've been dialoguing back and forth for years now. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I'm a big believer in creating a compelling sales hook and using sales intelligence as a way to create that sales hook. Because what I found is that, my goal when I teach sales is for you to sound different than every other person that's called them about that specific product or service in the last 60, 90 days. I want you to sound different. And the reason why is I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sally Hogshead said it best. Different is better than better. And what I mean by that is that it's hard to be better than everybody at everything. Ask Josh. He's got a software product, and it's hard to be better at everything. It's hard to be better at technology and support and pricing and customer service and marketing and communications. It's hard to play the better game with everybody, right? You might be better than, one of the competitors at these three things and better at one of the other competitors at these three things, but the other competitor might be better than you. Reality is they've been around longer. They've got better technology. They got better, whatever. They got more experience, but it's not hard to be different, right? It's easy to be different, and different stands out. Visualize this right now. You got a bunch of bananas, right? You bought them at the store. You got a bunch of bananas. They're all yellow, except the one in the middle is purple. You want to be that purple banana amongst a whole bunch of bananas, right? So that visual, think about it. You got to just imagine that's you, and that's about being different, not about always being better. Yes, you want to strive to be better. Yes, you want to have better communications and pricing and sales and all the different features and all the different things that a business has. But different is easier. And creating that compelling sales hook using sales intelligence is one of the easiest way that you can be different. Okay. So that's my 2 cents. And I know you've heard it before, Jim, but I was telling for everybody else's purposes. All right. Okay, cool. Look, check out the free trial. All right. So here you go. If I use a sales, would this CRM be a benefit?
So she corrected herself. She meant to say if I use a sales rep. would the
Oh, if you use a
CRM still be
sales
a
rep.
benefit?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe even more beneficial for you. And the reason being is because, again, kind of going back to point 4 that we were talking about earlier in this live there's just the team collaboration piece. So, if you're hiring a sales rep, like I would say one of the biggest value adds actually is that turnover is a real thing when it comes to freight brokerage. So
Sales in general, right?
sales in general. So,
Yep.
you may be thinking, okay, I'm going to have this person for the long run, but if you don't use a CRM and they use a spreadsheet or pen and paper, then you're never getting that intelligence of what they've actually talked to those shippers about if you do hire a salesperson. But again, the other benefit is that instead of you having to always ask, hey, sales rep, what's going on with the shipper? What progress have you made or what's going on? The CRM becomes the area where you can go and seek and find all those answers, whether that stuff is or is not happening. So from an accountability standpoint, you're going to be able to help hold them a little bit more accountable, but you're also just going to have all the visibility again for the things that are not happening.
3 things that he just said in 3 words: visibility, transparency, and retention. You retain the data. It doesn't leave with the salesperson. You have visibility into what they're doing, and transparency. You can run reporting and find out, all kinds of things, reports that are there, custom reports. I mean, you can slice and dice exactly what they're doing. So here's the reality. You hire a salesperson, you're paying them some sort of a salary, or you're paying whatever straight commission, and you agree that they're going to do X per day. This is their input, right? This is what we've agreed on, right? There's always got to be some level of agreement on what their input is to be. And if they're not meeting that obligation, you're not going to, you just don't point the finger and you don't coach them up without having any real data. You can say, listen, for the last 7 days, you've only made, X number of calls. You haven't done any quotes. What's going on? How can I help? What are we missing? What's the challenge? Why are we not hitting these pre-established marks? And you can coach people up before they get so frustrated that they turn over, because that's what happens in turnover, right? The salesperson gets so frustrated and they realize that the gig is going to be up eventually, and that they realize that they're not doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and they leave before anybody can fire them. That's how it works. That's one of the number one drivers of turnover.
Yeah.
Right?
There's also things from just a coach, like just touching on some of the stuff you mentioned too, though, from a coaching standpoint, where let's just say you're able to, instead of asking them, you can proactively go and see exactly what happened, right? From all the notes and all that stuff. Like, this is one of the things that helped me out when I first had joined brokerage over at One Point Logistics, and even at the last company that I was at, Silo, is that I can go and see those notes. And a lot of times I can help with strategy or throw out ideas to the salesperson to say, hey, this is something to think about, or this would be 1 or 2 questions to potentially ask. Or as your team grows, oftentimes, let's just say you captured some lanes, or you're quoting a specific product. There'd be so many times where I could say, hey, this would be a good salesperson to go talk to. Or if I already knew exactly what that situation was, I can say, hey, this salesperson already moves that kind of product, so here's some stories that you can tell. Or this shipper in particular moves a lot out of that specific location or facility, or area, city, whatever it may be. And that's going to be somebody to go talk to, or we can talk about our carrier network that we actually have, for that specific lane or just that outbound location. So as your team grows, that also will help as well, because you can really help when it comes to actual strategy before they actually make their next follow-up. And especially if it's for a more qualified opportunity, which again, they're not going to have 20 plus of these, a lot of the times it may be just 5, it could be 3 or 2. But you can help and coach and say, okay, what do we need to do to try to earn the first opportunity, and do that a little bit more proactively.
Yeah. Imagine having 10 salespeople, and you could go in and create a report that's specific to any one salesperson. You could create a report that's specific to all of the salespeople, right? That gathers all that data. And at that point, now you can coach them up and teach them and work with them to maximize that, rather than just trying to thumb through all the data. You can run those reports. Of course, if you see an issue or a challenge or an opportunity, you can dive into an individual opportunity or lead or prospect. But yeah, if you were planning on hiring salespeople, you definitely are going to need a CRM, even more so than if it was just you. Okay. So yeah, good question. Zoe Bell says, my name's Zoe. I'm going to apprentice under a broker's 20 years. I'm excited, but nervous. Videos. Oh, thank you. I'm glad they're helpful. I'm sure that the guy you're going to work for probably has a CRM. If he doesn't, mention it to him and you guys can check it out.
But Zoe, don't be nervous. I mean,
Don't be nervous.
you've been in it for 20 years, and honestly, you're only going to come out of the boot camp better and stronger.
Yeah,
So you
I'm
should be
sure
excited.
you're gonna do great. Yep. Okay. Jay Beller says, if I'm on the wait list, how long is the list to wait for us to be included, and does it go very fast? There's not, it's a first come, first serve. That means you get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Okay. And what happens is I click a button when I open up enrollment, and you all get a text, and that text says, enrollment is now open. First come, first serve. Click here. If you sign up, if you just got on the list the day before and you sign up, then you're in. If you got on the list 3 months ago and you missed the last one and you want to get in, you just have to get in before I close enrollment, before we fill it up. So if you get on the wait list right now, in the next 30 days, I'm going to be launching and opening up enrollment. So you're going to get a text from me, and it's going to say, hey, geez, I couldn't see your name here because it wasn't on the screen, but it's going to send you a text with a link. You can click on it, and you could literally be enrolled within 60 seconds if you choose. Okay. Because it'll have all the details there. So, Jay, I hope to see you on the other side, my friend. All right. Question for you, Josh. When prospecting for shippers, how do you overcome getting around the gatekeepers at large manufacturing and distribution centers? The good old gatekeeper.
Yeah, good question, Courtney. And Dennis, you may be the one to talk to about this. I know you got a lot of content on the gatekeepers. I mean, honestly, Courtney, I'm in the software world now and at a brokerage, but I'd say the main two things. I'd say number one is I would test their knowledge on the shipping operation is going to be first, and then I would say the second thing is if it's really kind of out of their scope. My typical strategy would always be to try to ask them questions. Honestly, even like a more in-depth question that kind of made me come off as more of an expert when it came to shipping. And if you can try to drive some urgency, then that's always great. But trying to ask a little bit more of an in-depth, complex question, because oftentimes they're not going to know, and they may say, hey, that's above my pay grade, or you're going to have to go talk to Jim or Susan or whoever it is. And then that may be a way to get them to pass through. But I think if you take them from at least my experience, if you take a more generic approach and just say, I'm looking to speak with Jim over in shipping and just wanted to get onboarded as a carrier, they're very well trained to just, pass, just basically shut you down, or, hey, send an email here, or anything like that. But I think if you can try to get really specific about something that you're trying to learn, whether it is the product or whether it is the facility, anything like that, that they're not going to really know, then that's where they may say, okay, this is somebody that's worth actually passing off to pass through to the actual decision maker.
Yeah,
Dennis,
I like that.
anything.
I like that idea of asking a complex question, because what they're doing, you got to remember, someone who's fielding these calls, there's a very good chance they don't have the answer to that. And they may very well, out of frustration, just transfer you through because they're like, listen, I don't know the answer. You got to talk to Jim, like you said. So I like that angle. That's kind of a cool idea. I never really thought about that. Let me give you a couple of tips. I can tell you this: the number one thing that you can do to get past the gatekeeper is so simple that you're not going to believe me. And that is this: when you call in to a shipper, don't ask if you can talk to the shipping manager or logistics manager or traffic manager. Don't ask by title, ask by name. So for example,
that's a great point.
I'm calling Josh. Josh picks up the phone. He says, hi, XYZ Manufacturing. And I say, hey, can I talk to Josh in shipping? Like I know him, like he's my cousin, like we just got off the phone, right? That sounding like you have that familiarity with who it is. Don't say, Josh, can I talk to Josh Lyles in shipping? No. It's Josh.
Yeah.
It's Josh. That will automate. The psychology behind that is, oh, this is his friend, or this is someone he just got off the phone. Okay, let me transfer you now. But if you say, can I talk to the shipping manager? They go, ding, 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 salesperson. Oh, I got to filter them out. So I'm going to ask you 7 questions, waste your time, and then maybe or maybe not put you through, but probably got a 5 or 10% chance you're going to get passed through. So knowing the shipping manager's name, how do you do that? You look on their website, you look on LinkedIn, or guess what? The first phone call you make, if you don't know the shipping manager's name, is you call in and ask, hey, listen, I'd like to send a package out to the shipping manager. I'd like to get his full name so I could send that out to him. Oh, it's Joe Smith. Great. Bing. Now I know it's Joe Smith. Call back a half hour later. Can I talk to Joe in shipping? Now you know the shipper manager's name. I mean, listen, some of this is just, this is chess, not checkers, right? I can teach a 5-year-old to play checkers. But
Yep.
chess, you got to think a little bit ahead, right? So
Yep.
that's one thing, knowing the shipping manager's name, talking as if you have familiarity, talking as if you know him. And then on the other end, when that person picks up, don't say, hey, can I talk to Josh Lyles? You say, hey, Josh. You assume that it's Josh. They're going to tell you, oh, no, this isn't Josh. Let me put you over to him. Or he's going to say, yeah, who's this? And then now you got the conversation started. Okay. So you have to speak with some familiarity, right? Don't sound like a salesperson. Don't
Act
sound
like you've
like
been
that
there
person.
before.
Yeah. Act like you've been
Act
here
like you
before.
know.
That's perfect. Another one is this. If you've got somebody who's really tough at gatekeeping, this is a little hack you can try, and it's worked for me hundreds of times. And Josh, feel free to use this in your efforts with your business. If you got somebody who's a big company and they're guarding you out and you just can't get through, or maybe it's an automated phone system of some sort, get through to another department. Get through to sales, get through to
Yep.
customer service, get through to purchasing, get through to some other department. Push as many buttons as you have to have, or ask for whoever you have to have who's not in shipping and logistics and transportation. And then when they pick up the phone, say, oh, I'm sorry. They were supposed to put me through to Joe in shipping. Can you transfer me? And they'll transfer you because their job is not to be a gatekeeper.
Correct.
Okay. So you can come in from a different angle. Again, that's where the chess comes in, right?
Good tip.
So those are a couple of tips that you can use to try to get transferred in if you're getting filtered out. Hope that helps. Good question though, Courtney. Thank you. Jim Hand is back at it. Let's hear it, Jim. You posted on LinkedIn about using an email verification tool to prevent bounce backs. Do you have a recommendation on a tool?
So Jim, I pointed people in that post to Google search it so that way they could do their due diligence to try to find a tool that makes the most sense for them. I still prefer that because I can't sit here and I can't sit here and say, oh, I've got the absolute best one because I've tried all of them. I just know it's something that's worth it if you're doing any kind of bulk or mass emailing. But I will say the one specific one that I do use is Million Verifier.
And I don't have a verification software that I use for any sort of verification. So I can't even really chime in on that because all of the people that come to me in Freight Broker Bootcamp are all inbound opt-in. So, I don't have that for cold outreach.
Yeah.
But we could do a little bit of research on that, Jim. Maybe that's a conversation. Maybe that's a future topic we could talk about.
It's a good topic. Just really quick. I mean, context on that one. And the reason why I posted about that for anybody listening is because especially when people come into sales, I'll often ask them exactly what they're looking for. And they'll say, email automation or being able to send bulk emails or email sequences as, drip emails. And then a lot of people go into this stuff, I would say there's just another level of education that sometimes needs to go into it. But if you just go and pull a ton of emails from any of the big lead generation databases that are out there, because you can go and access those emails, you want to be really cautious because if you just fire off one of those bulk or emails or those email sequences, a lot of times if those emails are not accurate or they're non-deliverable or they do bounce, you can hurt your email reputation. And with that, at that point, then the emails that you're sending off to shippers and carriers can go into spam. So you want to be really cautious about that because it's very simple for that to happen. And especially if you were to just typically take one, even if sometimes, one of the lead generation databases tell you they're verified emails, it's still really good to still use a verification tool because they're going to tell you what's good, what's risky, and what's bad. So just be very cautious about that because you don't want to ruin your email reputation with the email service providers because you don't want your emails going into spam. You can have the most perfect email in the world, but if it's not hitting their inbox and it's going into spam, it doesn't matter how good the email is.
Yep, exactly. Good question, Jim. All right. Jay Ballard has another question. When you were brand new to freight brokering, agenting, and just learning how to put it all together, what is the best recommendation to get past anxiety to be more effective? Okay. So Jay, I'll chime in first here. And I talk about this a lot in my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Because in my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, we have people that are brand new to freight brokering that are just looking to really learn how to sell. And we have others who have been in it for months and some people who have been in it for years and are really just trying to ratchet up. But it caters a lot to newer people. And mindset is a huge challenge for new people in sales. It just is. Fear of failure, fear of what people think of you, fear of doing something wrong, fear of the unknown is real. It's real, and it can be debilitating. Okay. And it can literally be the difference as to whether you survive or fail. Okay. And I'm saying that. So mindset is where we start in that program. And what I found is that we have been programmed from the time we were born, okay, that no is a bad thing. You're a child. The first thing you hear is, no, don't touch that. No, don't eat that. No, don't go up there. No, don't do that. Right. So it's from the time we're a young child, no is ingrained in our mind. Everything is a no because our parents are worried we're going to get hurt or we're going to fall or we're going to trip or we're going to do something wrong or we're going to eat something stupid like I did. Right. So that's the problem. So you hear no from this early age and it becomes just a part of our psyche. So we are so afraid to hear the word no and hear rejection that it literally prevents people from engaging. But what you have to do is you have to reframe that, right? Your mom and dad didn't do it to hurt you, but they did it to protect you. And so our psyche is built to protect ourselves. And so whenever you might get into a situation where you're vulnerable, people shy away, right? They don't engage, or they don't engage the way they should, or or they don't follow the proper steps. So you have to kind of reframe this whole concept of no. And I'm going to give you a book. It's been around for decades. It's called Go for No. Okay. You can buy it on Amazon. It's one of the most popular sales mindset books out there. I didn't write it. I'm not endorsed. They're not a sponsor. There's no connection, but I recommend you check it out. Go for No, because what it's going to do is it's going to help you to reframe your mindset when it comes to the fear of rejection. Right. So that's probably the biggest tip I could give you. It's an easy read. And it's going to teach you how to reframe that so that you're not so caught up on the outcome, right? Because that's the other thing that salespeople have. They have this, they try to predict the outcome. They get so built up on the outcome, and the outcome is either yes, no, or maybe. That's what happens in sales, right? Mm-hmm. You can't get focused on the outcome. You got to get focused on the input, and just know that if you have the right strategy and the right system, that if you touch the bases, you check the boxes, and you follow the process, that at the top of that funnel, that's going to be real wide, and at the bottom, it's going to be narrow, and sales are going to fall out of that funnel. But you have to have faith in the system, that if you follow that system, regardless of how many no's you get today, or how many yeses you get today, or how many maybes you get today, that sales are going to fall out. And then that is the benefit, right? The cool part about freight brokerage is, and I've talked about this many times, you don't need hundreds of customers to build a six-figure income as a freight broker. You literally need about 5 to 10 shippers. That's it. Because of the lifetime value of those shippers. A small shipper, just to put it in perspective for you, someone that's doing very little business with you, maybe they're giving you one load a week, okay? That right there is probably at an average of $1,500 per truckload, right? If we're just assuming an average of $1,500, which is, it's probably higher, is a $75,000 a year revenue prospect or customer. $75,000 a year. If you're making, well, let's see, I'm not very good at math and it's not an exact science, but let's look at it, right? We got 52 times 1,500. That's $78,000 a year. And if all you're making is a 15% margin on it, that's $11,700 per year. Let's add it up. Super small shipper, one load a week times 10, that's 117,000. Your shippers aren't all going to just give you one load a week. Some of them are going to give you a load a day. Some of them are going to give you 2 loads a week. Some of them are going to give you 10 loads a day. It's not uncommon. So the cool part about it is know that even though, that rock, that sales rock, that prospecting rock that sits in front of you as a new agent or a new broker or a new business or new salesperson is really freaking heavy and you can't get it to move. Once you get that first revolution, it starts to gain momentum. And the lifetime value and the recurring nature of the business is what sets you free in freight brokerage. Because just because you had to make 100 or 200 calls, to start getting those first few shippers and to start making some positive cash flow, it doesn't always have to be a high volume burnout situation. Once you start getting those customers, you can be more strategic. And number 2, you'll be better at it. So you won't have to make as many calls. So those are a couple of tips. Josh, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, I think really good points. I mean, anytime that I hired a salesperson, the first thing I always wanted to talk about was mindset, because that's where it starts. Everything that you said about the feeling of rejection is really important. But I think to sort of simplify some of that stuff, once you have a map of exactly like a plan in place, right? You know exactly what steps you need to take. That anxiety is going to get reduced because you can sit there and say, okay, I've got a plan and like these are the steps that I need to take. But if you don't have a plan or a process in place, it's going to make that much more challenging. And then that anxiety is going to rise because you're going to be really questioning your movements and what you actually do. So that's really important. And then I think the second thing beyond even the mindset is your expectation. And it's sales. Sales is challenging. The majority of the time you are going to have rejection. You're going to have a lot of no's. So you have to have that expectation that that's going to happen. But one of the things I remember when I first started making cold calls when I had gotten into brokerage was, and it was kind of a relief for me, but I remember literally one of my, like my first or my second call, and it was just terrible. It was so bad. But the thing that gave me relief was I could call that person a week or two later and they have no idea, no recollection of that call that I had made. Right. But the thing is that I can sit there and say, okay, I made this went wrong in that call and I need to do this better. And you make so many calls when you're in this industry. So you can get so much better, even just after one day. And think about it after a week and then after 2 weeks, you're just making little small tweaks to the point where you're trying to just avoid what that no or that rejection. But still having the expectation that the majority of the time it's going to be there. And then Dennis, I mean, like, I'm so glad you pulled out the calculator and ran those numbers, but that in itself should be motivation, just to get to the 5 to 10 shippers. And that is really what you need. And some of them are going to be larger than what you even just mentioned. Some will be smaller, but there's going to be one or two that become larger. And if you service them the right way, then you can find yourself in a really good spot. So I think everything that you said was very spot on.
Thank you. And listen, here's the thing. What Josh just said, to kind of chime in on that, was once you understand and have visibility into the process and you have a plan in place and you have a system, that's the difference between, you going on YouTube or Google and searching for some freight broker script and assuming that that's going to deliver you to Valhalla. Okay. And it's not, or you having and understanding the entire sales process from beginning to end and how to navigate it. Right. And then having that implemented in your business. That's the difference. That's the reason why I put the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator together. If it was as easy as just having a one size fits all sales script, everybody would do it and everybody would be successful, but it's not. There's levels of complexity to it. And if you don't understand those, you can learn them over time, but the pain of learning them is what you're going through right now. And if you have a system, you can compress time. Whereas it might take you 6 months to learn this much about what you need to do. Through this Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, you can compress time into a much smaller package, right? Into a much smaller time frame. And for you, that can make the difference of success or failure. So that's why I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Get on the wait list, because I don't want you pissed off at me later when you didn't get enrolled because you forgot to get on the wait list. It happens every single time. I get an email from somebody, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't, I'm sorry, can you let me in? And I'm like, listen, I can only handle 100 people. And it's a high quality problem, but it's still a problem. And I feel bad, but I limit the number of people that I put in that program because I want to be able to spend time with them. This, there's a couple different ways you can do the program, but we're doing live coaching, right? You're not, just watching a video. We're doing live coaching. You're coming in like this, but rather than imagine you're Josh and we're on a Zoom call and I'm talking to you and you have a specific problem, we work through that entire problem one-on-one. It's in a group format where everybody can benefit, but one-on-one, we're talking about your issue, your challenge, and I help you navigate the whole thing. And by the end of that, the biggest thing that people come away with is the confidence in the system to move forward. So get on the wait list. All right, cool, guys. Listen, we've ran over. We've taken a lot of Josh's time. I know he's a busy guy. I'm sure he has tons of calls he has to make himself and lots of things. Listen, Josh, let's do this. Let's put the link back up on the screen. If you guys want to get a free trial to Sales-CRM, the freight broker specific CRM that Josh put together, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/CRM. If you want to connect with Josh, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Just search Josh Lyles. He's on there all the time, right? And I'm sure you guys will be able to connect there. Josh, what's your email if somebody wants to shoot you an email?
Josh at sales-crm.com. That's my email. There you go,
guys.
I'll answer you.
You can shoot a direct question. If you didn't ask your question here about sales or CRM, send a message to Josh. He will absolutely get back to you. He's very responsive. And I appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody that's listening. If you guys are looking for some additional help and you're just getting started, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Again, 60-day, 100% unconditional money back guarantee. I come back. I do these lives every Monday at noon. So set a reminder in your phone. I'll send you an email. You can get logged in. And these are free trainings I do every single week. I have great experts like Josh on here, some of my own stuff, and then other past students. So appreciate you guys being here. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks.